Hi, my name is Hannah, and today we will interview Emanuel. He is born in Italy, raised in Australia, educated in Switzerland, and now based in Singapore. Emanuel is now a Singaporean citizen with decades of experience in the private wealth space. Today, he gave us his view on key trends as we emerge into post-pandemic world.
This podcast channel is about you, successful international entrepreneurs, successful expats, successful investors. Sponsored by HCJ.tax.
Oh, good. Good to see you again.
Likewise, it's been quite a while. So for those who may be watching or listening to you on our podcast, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. My name is Emanuel. I've been living in Singapore since 18 years. And I was born in Italy. I lived in different countries, Australia, Switzerland, before moving to Singapore. And my background is finance, banking, but since a few years I've been an independent consultant, taking care of my own clients, investment and insurance needs. And that's just who I am in a nutshell.
Okay, that's great. So again, a lot of the people who watch and listen to this, they have that international mindset. They do business internationally, and you come from that background: Italy, Switzerland, Australia, Singapore. So you've lived in different places, worked in different places, and you still work in what is one of the major financial centers of the world. So you have that international mindset. So with that in mind, what we're going through right now is, again, sorry for using the cliche, unprecedented. And there's so many forces at play. From a business perspective, what are your thoughts on the key trends that we need to pay attention to going forward?
Okay. Well, up to the present crisis, what was going on was a lot of globalization, cutting down borders, travel, taking away the hurdles for international business. There was a lot of all this going on. Globalization really kicked off end of 90s when the technology allowed for Zoom sessions and video sessions and all this. Flying became cheaper, and businesses started expanding throughout the world where it made sense. And everyone spoke about globalization. Trade deals were made after GUTS and when WHO started. So not WHO, WTO. What was experienced by the great powers was when the big ones, China, India, Russia, came in, it was much more difficult to make trade deals on a global scale, which benefited them because obviously there were much more diverse interests in play. And then we experienced that WTO started taking a backstage. They started creating these regional treaties. NAFTA, which has recently been revised. ASEAN in Southeast Asia. TPP never took off, but I think they're working on a smaller version of that. But even in Asia, there are many regional treaties under negotiation or in existence. And all these regional treaties have bilateral agreements with others like ASEAN. I know that Singapore has it with the EU. I'm not sure if ASEAN has it yet. The US and the EU never reached an agreement, but you have all these smaller, WTO is in the background now. Now you have all these smaller regional agreements. Otherwise, they would never reach an agreement. So, but notwithstanding that, things went quite smoothly for the international trade until the US-China trade war started a few years ago. And before the present crisis, they were starting to reach an agreement there. And now the present crisis even put a roadblock onto their agreement. So we'll have to see where that goes. But from globalization, we've switched to nationalization and nationalism, and borders are coming up. Even in Australia, between New South Wales and Victoria, they've closed the borders. Who would have thought that? The last time that happened, I think it was 120 years ago, without a closed border. They had locked down all the borders in Schengen in Europe, and you can't find flights. So the countries are much more isolated. Global trade with the trade war, especially between China and the US, has suffered a lot, and the small economies have suffered. Some obviously always take advantage of that. I mean, after China got locked out of the US, Vietnam took a lot of profit out of that, and so on and so forth. So it's a much more nationalistic mindset going forward. Now, is this going to be the future? No, I don't think it's going to be the future, but it's going to be a different future going forward. It's not just going to be open borders, open markets anymore. There will be more contingency plans because countries have to make sure that they can take care of themselves once trade and once logistics, once supply chains don't work anymore the way we're used to them working. So many countries, especially smaller countries, will make sure that they first of all diversify their supply chains, and that they can even produce domestically as much as they can. And so it'll be interesting to see where it goes. Globalization is not dead. There are many good things about globalization, but I believe the countries, each and every country, first of all, has to look after its own interests and after its own people. That's very important. And once countries do that, they can start negotiating as equals, maybe not size-wise, GDP-wise, but at least as equal partners in any negotiation. I think it's important that the governments look after their countries first, and don't just focus on overarching considerations.
Okay, so definitely globalization is not dead, but it will proceed in a different way. So right now, the forces or the appetite for more economic nationalism, it is going to reign. It's going to have its day. Now it's its time. Regional blocks, and as you mentioned that, I'm thinking of, for example, previously when we looked at these passport indices published by guys like Henley and Partners and Arden Capital, I think it is, where you look at the ability of a given passport. For example, I lost you for a bit. For example, the Singaporean passport or the German passport, you can get into just under 200 countries without a visa, right? Now, overnight, that's gone, because now you're talking about travel bubbles, travel corridors, travel bridges. So like the UK, I have a UK passport, and it used to be over 100 countries, no problem. Now it's 59, right? Because only 59 will let you go in, and even probably less than that without having to go into 2 weeks quarantine, or they just say don't come. So my sense is that that momentum will continue for a while, and as a result, your ability to move around, not just to do business, but to physically move around, which is of course critical to getting business done, will be curtailed. And so we'll be looking within smaller networks, at least for in the near term. So I definitely see that. What else do you see happening?
It's interesting, because this new status quo we found ourselves in after after let's say, the bulk of the crisis, let's hope that it's coming to an end. All the changes which you just mentioned, as always in life, where there's risk or where there's challenges, there are also opportunities. Now, I believe there are opportunities, because if we don't all depend just on China for supply chain, for production, if we can transfer some of not only the know-how but also of the production capabilities, decentralize it to other countries, to smaller countries, I believe this will be an opportunity for domestic economies to diversify more, to gain employment. I think that's one of the benefits, and I hope that countries do make use of it. For the rest, we'll have to see how long this is going to last and where exactly it's going to go. Right now, they're talking about second, third, fourth waves. Who knows? I'm very traditional in all these things. I believe in herd immunity. I think pretty much in many countries it's done and dusted. I think if we let it take its natural course, we'll all be fine. And there's a lot of scientific literature. There are many scientists and doctors who agree on that. So I'm not sure how long more we're going to be in crisis mode, but I do believe people should try, especially business people, to continue with business as usual as much as possible. I mean, I know there are a lot of roadblocks. I mean, you can't travel, and if you travel, you might have to do quarantine and all that, and it's very difficult. But I say, try to adapt your business to the current circumstances, and that will make you stronger in the future. Because if you adapt now and you survive and you start from a stronger base, once this crisis is over, the next time such things come around, you'll have everything in place. I mean, you never know. Now we're talking about this virus, this health crisis, this pandemic, whatever it is, but you never know. Maybe one of the regions you do business with in the future is involved in a regional war, so you can't travel there. So again, you'll have to come back onto the same platforms like Zoom, like these online meetings, which you're using now. You won't be able to meet your clients. So I say, try to make the best out of the present situation. Keep a clear mind, keep your focus. Don't get too much distracted by all the noise which is around us. And talk to your business partners, talk to your counterparts, and see how best to get out of this. And to continue your business, to keep it strong, finding new solutions, new ideas. But I always say, I wouldn't call the future a new normal. To me, the normal is normal. If you want to call it something, then it's abnormal. But abnormal is abnormal because we should glide back to the normal path. That's my personal philosophy, at least the way I see it. I want to get back to the life we had and do business the way we did. So this event, this episode, these last 6 months, to me, are just going to make us stronger. We'll find new solutions, new ways of doing things. It's going to just increase, grow our arsenal of tools we have at our disposal, and we just try to make business better afterwards. I wouldn't get. I don't like to think that the whole world is going to change after this. I think let's keep going.
Okay, so those are three great points. The first being, at least in Asia, there's an opportunity there, and staying positive, there's an opportunity in terms of the supply chain story, and we're already seeing, we're hearing positive messages from the likes of Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, also as close by as Indonesia, where they have benefited from some production shifting as multinational supply chains look to diversify. So that's good. And even though Asia, and I'm including Australia and New Zealand in this, even though their approach to managing the pandemic is lockdown and basically hitting the pause button on the economy, in Europe and North America, it's not that it's a different direction. So it's an opportunity to pivot and look for growth there while Asia does its thing. And then as you step back and to your point, let's say that this is not the new normal, this is abnormal, and let's focus on a return to what was normal, which is, traveling around, doing business with each other, getting things done. So I hear you. Mm-hmm.
Now look, we even have to keep in mind, maybe in the West it's not so apparent, in Europe, in the US, but here in Asia we still have many countries with big populations like Indonesia.
Mm-hmm.
Even still in China, Vietnam, these are still emerging countries.
Mm-hmm.
The populations are young, they're hungry, they want to come to a level of development, to a level of a standard of living, comfort of living, which is taken for granted in the West and even in many Asian countries nowadays. Mm-hmm. But it is a young and hungry and growing population, developing, emerging populations, and they have a lot ahead of them. Look what happened to China in the last 30 years. Mm-hmm. China grew, tremendously. A lot of people were taken out of poverty. A lot are still in poverty, and many laborers, they didn't all experience the glories, which sometimes we get the impression when we watch the news. Mm-hmm. And many came out of poverty. There's a big middle class in China, and it's growing, and in the rest of Asia as well. The technologies which we need are there. We have to keep things in perspective. This COVID, this crisis, based on this COVID, mm-hmm. They say it's a mutation from the SARS we had in 2002, 2003. Mm-hmm. We got over that. It wasn't such a big deal as this one, but we got over that. It was mainly in Asia. Asia got over it. Mm-hmm. And we'll get over this. After the SARS crisis in the last decade, we had all the budget flights, which made it much more easier for people to travel. It was much cheaper, low budget. Many more could travel in Asia, in Europe, and that will all come back because that's what people want. That's what you need for the interchange, for the exchange amongst countries, for businesses, for regional businesses. That's all going to come back. You can do a lot over video, distance, telephone, but nothing will ever take away the personal contact, the face-to-face.
Yes.
It's nothing can ever take away that feel you get when you're sitting opposite a person, when you go for drinks in an evening to get to know each other and to gain that trust and understanding. The video conference will never give it to you. The video conference is very useful once you know each other and you just have to discuss day-to-day business, mm-hmm. Plans or whatever you want to discuss. But it can never replace the interpersonal relationships which are there, and that's all going to come back, especially when you although the world is much smaller than it used to be because mm-hmm. of all traveling and technology, there are still very different cultures in the world, and young people and people who are new to business, who are newly dealing with new regions, new businesses, new industries, they're new to all this. For veterans of global travel, global business, it's day-to-day, it's nothing new. Mm. But young people, the next generation are coming in. They have to experience it the way we experienced it. And it's good for them to travel, and it's very enriching, it's very important. I think it's going to come back. It's going to maybe take, not this year, maybe towards the end of the year. I hope next year it's mostly going to be back to normal.
Mm. Fantastic. That's a great message. Resilience, innovation. It reminds me of what one of my professors said back in university in economics, that demand creates its own supply. People want that. It's an important part of the human experience. So it will be just a matter of time till we figure out a way to deliver that to people who are willing to pay for it. And yes, there will be health concerns. There will always be, perhaps, but it won't be a permanent impediment. And I think that that's a really positive message, Emmanuel. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your insight and your global perspective.
Look, it was a pleasure talking to you, and yeah, we can always do it again in the future. And thank you
Absolutely.
for your time. And it's been interesting, and yeah, let's be in touch.
Fantastic.